Welcome back, Curriculum Mappers. This is video part 4 in my short series regarding connecting outcomes to the corresponding Google Docs, which are our units. Now you'll notice in this awesome table that we have the red and green buttons, and in a previous video I talked about the differences in between these, and that the red ones take me to a link where I can edit a previously submitted set of outcomes, whereas the green ones are forms that have not been submitted and are essentially pre-filled Google form URLs. And they will turn, for example, they turn red after they've been submitted. So just to demonstrate, if I want to attribute outcomes to this computer systems programming and robotics course, and then the unit here is in part of logistics, I can click on this and I'm just going to randomly pick some. Of course, I'd be more thoughtful doing this for real life, but if I hit submit and now I come back to this, and I need to refresh because the change, we won't be able to see the change happen until I've refreshed the page. But so we're going to be looking for this one to turn red. So I'm going to refresh the page. Now notice this has become red because if I need to come back and edit these, I can click on this, and now it takes me back to the link where I can edit those responses. So what this video is intended to show you is how the template allows me to create this look with the buttons, and not only the buttons but just kind of with the style of the text and so on and so forth. So going back to the Google Sheet that is driving this awesome table, here it is. It's the import sheet of our form responses. Every awesome table that has sort of this template effect must have a template in the Google Sheet. And this is what mine looks like. I've actually taken this from an example on the awesome table documentation, but I just separated out the CSS, which is on this side. And I don't know a lot about cascading style sheets, so this is definitely within reach of someone who doesn't have a lot of contact with HTML or CSS. Again, this is mainly sort of pattern based, and so I pulled out all of the CSS and I created two, I guess I don't know if they're called classes or what, but there's a style that I'm using for the edit buttons, and there's a style that I'm using for the submit buttons. And really the only difference is the RGB colors that I've attributed to these. So this one is the red color, or a shade of red for that matter, and then down here this is green. Otherwise these are pretty much identical in terms of the CSS. Now this, in terms of how it's related to this column, you'll notice here I'm actually building a URL and I'm attributing a style to that URL. So think of everything in these curly brackets as like placeholders. So if we go back and we look at the placeholder for URL, this is actually the header in my import sheet over here. So that's this one. And this column contains all of the URLs based on exactly what I want. So, and again, like I said in the previous video, if there is text, if there's a URL in column E, then it's going to place that URL here. If not, then it's going to place the URL in column D here. But this is really the only column I'm working with in my awesome table. Now, In terms of choosing between the edit or submit class here in the template, this is done through a similar piece of logic. So you'll notice that on my import sheet I have either edit, 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 or submit. Now if we look at the formula in column F, again, this is basically saying that if there is a URL in column E this time, then place the word edit in column G. If there is not a URL in column E, then place the word submit in column G, right? The fact that these switch, this dictates the color of that button, right? So if we go back and we look at templates, we can see that the status, so this is our placeholder, and this says status. So if the status is edit, it's going to utilize the edit style for that button. If the style says submit, it's going to utilize this style. So you can get as creative as you want with the way these things look, but the engine behind this is that keyword edit and submit. Those are the ones I'm using. You can use any words you want, but as long as that is triggering which style to attribute to that URL, you can manage things like changing colors. And then I added, of course, this target blank to my HTML markup. This makes sure that the form opens in a brand new tab rather than within the awesome table on the Google site. It can be really hard to scroll if you don't, if you're trying to work with the Google form inside that small awesome table window on the Google site. And then, of course, outcomes is the text that appears in both of those buttons. So the only distinguishing factor is the difference in color, which I think, and maybe I'll find out later that I need to change this, but I think for right now that's a good enough indicator of outcomes that need to be submitted or could be edited, for example. So that's kind of how I'm controlling that, with that sort of that logic of if there's a URL here, then put edit there. If not, then put the words submit. And again, as in previous videos, I'll post this array formula in the comments in the Google Plus community. And just so you can see the back end of this awesome table, I will just show you where you would apply that template. And this would be located under the advanced parameters, and it's just, you would just select the range. So it's template exclamation mark A1 to B2, which corresponds from here, A1 to B2, and then all of this information gets packaged into a column that I've called link. And if we go back to import, you can see here there's just this column link that is giving the template space to work. So there you have it. That's how I have added colors to the buttons and have made it easier for teachers to submit or edit outcomes. Thanks for watching. Bye.